everyone. A very warm welcome to the fifth episode of Coaching Gupshup with Smita and Kiwa. Hi, Kiwa. How are you doing?
Hi, Smita. All good. How are you?
Good, good. Very good. The week has been good for us, right?
It's been fruitful for sure.
So, today we are going to talk about listening, such a key topic, I think, for all of us as coaches, but I think in general also, right? So, Kiva, as you are listening to this word listening, what thoughts come to your mind?
The first thought was that I am such a poor listener. So today is going to be an interesting conversation. I think, yeah, that's the first thought. What about you?
A lot of things come up, but I just wanted to check with you, like when you're thinking of poor, like when you're saying poor listening, what is it that is making you say that?
Like, I think at times I have come across people or I've heard about people who give their complete attention, to when somebody is speaking or somebody is present around them. And I think it's a huge sign of respect and being wholly there, present for a person. And I don't think that happens with me. I get distracted. I don't listen superficial, not I won't say superficially. It depends, right? It depends on the conversation, it depends on the relationship, it again depends on the degree of uh, importance that conversation has. So it varies, I feel. So with some, I think that attention is like full and complete, or on some topics it's full and complete. I also think there are certain areas of interest, so when those things come up, I listen differently. So I think listening for me personally looks different in different scenarios and situations. And that's why I said I'm poor, because I think there should be consistency. It doesn't matter what is being discussed or who is sharing it. So I think, yeah, though it sounds harsh, but I think that is an area that I genuinely want to get better at. So maybe this gupshup is going to get me to that
The
place.
fact that you are aware about this, Kiva, I really feel that that is nowhere in the category of poor. It's not just about listening to words, right? Like I really feel somebody who's able to read the room, listen beyond words, like all of that is part of listening.
True, true, absolutely. Yeah.
And then when I'm thinking about my childhood, right, like when we've heard from our parents, you don't listen, or listen to me, and this is all about that listening, which actually is more like following instructions from the person who's telling you to listen, is actually listening, was actually listening. So somebody who would follow the instructions well is actually listening, right? That was the definition then. And I think now that we are trying to understand and getting more deep into listening, we didn't even know, right, before we joined this coach training school, that there are levels in listening. Yeah.
Yeah, and like when you also shared this example, I was actually getting reminded of different experiences, right? Like systemically, it has been a part of, I don't know, our culture or something to listen. And it's also associated with so many other things, right? It means you're respecting the other. It means you have understood, or you are a responsible person if you're listening and then following the instructions, like you said. And at times, like even in the classroom, like when, let's say, a teacher was very boring, or like, presented whatever content in a boring way, but there was this fear. So you would listen, but you wouldn't actually be listening. You would
Yeah.
just be pretending, maybe nodding your head or like showing the signs that you're listening. And I think, like you said, right, when you go through coach training, then you understand, oh, listening is this, or you experience, it differently, completely.
You start getting the actual meaning of listening, I think, by being in the space. And how powerful it can be for the other is what we experience with every coaching conversation that we have, right? Like in general also, it's not just about coaching conversation. It's about the general conversation as well as to what are the benefits of listening. So how do you, like in terms of, listening, how do you feel about how it was before and how it's moved? Like, how are you seeing this evolving for you? I mean, one you shared for sure about this awareness that you said, right? But what else? What else?
I have to first confess something. I'm trying really hard to be completely present today. And I'm noticing, oh my God, yes, I do get it. I mean, I'm listening, but like the other areas of listening, like you mentioned. So I think the first time that I experienced deep listening during my coach training was with Coach Nobantu. Like, just when we started, there was this deep respect that you feel, in the company of someone who is not just like listening from here, but from here, and is at times like switching off the head and like the brain and just like being there, So I think listening, and I remember actually she had only said something like, coaching is about, like doing less and being more. So I think the being part of it is something that, of course, I haven't learned fully. But at times, I think it's like a muscle. So I feel when you practice it and you experience the goodness actually that comes with it, and the judgments that kind of start getting removed because you're listening to more than what you can see and hear, I feel it calms you as well. And yeah, I think it does feel like an experience. You can sense the energy of a person, versus just what they're speaking. So it becomes like an experience that you are entering, and like it's this mutual respect, that you're trying to provide to each other.
Yeah, wonderful. I think you have been a very good listener in Nobantu's class. It looks like a coach trainer is, talking about listening. Wonderful. Great to hear your insights about this, right?
But what
What
about
else?
you?
Yeah.
What
Oh,
about you, Smita?
so what about me in the sense of how I feel, how I am evolving?
Yes, with respect to listening. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think more everything that you said definitely has been my experience as well in terms of, I think it really started with that awareness, right? Like all of these years, I really feel that the definition of listening was very limited. I think only by coming in this space, started realizing that, when we say empathetic listening, or when we say generative listening, what that really takes for one to be a generative listener, right? Like, what does it take for one to be an empathetic listener? It's like, of course, the judgments need to stay away. The
Mm.
space of knowing everything, right? Like that, I'm I'm a PCC coach or a MCC coach, and that I know coaching and I know everything about coaching. So, or I know everything about the other person. So whenever I think I'm operating from the space of I know the other person, I totally know their situation, like totally from the space of knowing, then I observe that I'm not listening to the other person fully because I'm coming from that space of it's like that with that person, and it is about, and then start seeing the difference between what it means and how it differs from the other levels of listening. So it has really become awareness has really increased, and I have started observing in me and also in the other person, when I'm in a also in team meetings or in team discussions, right? Like when I'm observing the other person as to, and that's what makes me anxious about it, that we all understand theoretically, but when we have to actually apply it in practice, it's very hard. It's one to talk about the levels of listening, and it's absolutely different to put those into practice. So I think my observation about self and about the others has increased. And every day, I think I'm evolving, I'm observing my environment. How do I conduct myself, right? Like, how do I listen? So I'm observing all of that.
I need to get to this place, Smita.
You are
Yeah.
there.
No, getting there one step at a time. Today was one step. But a thought that came to my mind right now was like in a coaching conversation, like when you practice listening consciously, uh, right, knowing that I have to listen to my client and give them that space so that they can, bring their full version to the space. You operate with that thought, right? So the listening means your speaking reduces and the client takes over more of the talking. Uh, and I was thinking, this is actually applicable completely in the real world as well. Right? But I'll talk about myself, not making it a general statement, but it can be tough sometimes to do that because there sometimes, let's say in a conversation, it looks like you want to share something. There's a thought already that has been formed in your mind versus in a coaching conversation, no thought is formed. The thoughts will arrive based on what the client shares. And I think if we can flip it and actually operate like that every day in your life, I'm just thinking there'll be so much safety that you'll create for others around you just by that practice. Like nobody will feel that, oh, my thought wasn't heard, right? Or nobody will think that I was cut sooner than, like before I could complete my sentence. Uh, and it's also making me ask myself right now, like, why is it so important to even talk or like express so much?
Yeah. So when we just started, like when I just started my journey, right? Like, and when we were going through these ICF core competencies and listening, as you're saying that, we should be listening. There is a need for me to listen. I think, when there is a pressure, maybe, you feel that you're in a spotlight, right? Like and which happens with the, if the expectation from myself is that I would listen to the person 100% and I would grasp of 100% of what the other person is saying, which I think is not possible, right? Like sometimes we have clients who are talking for 5 minutes. We can't listen and remember. We can listen to everything, but we can remember partly. So I think more than the listening, it's about the presence. And if the presence is there, I think you also, in your earlier share, you were saying, right? Like, can I be just present fully for the other person? So I think if done that, listening is, a byproduct of that presence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing, Kiva, that you said was about, when something is going in our heads, right? Like that was the point, no? When we feel that some other point, somebody is saying something, and in my head something else is going on. So was your question more like, how do I kind of shut that and focus here?
Yeah. Like, why that need to talk? Why that need to respond? Why not just be?
Yeah. So the need of that respond, right? Yeah. I mean, I think this is for everyone, right? Like we always feel that we have contributed or we are included or we are a part of it only when we get the chance to talk. Right? And that is natural, but I think how do we kind of train ourselves? I think before the conversation, like earlier sometime in this week, when we were talking about listening as a topic, you were asking as to, how do we train our mind to not feel this way, right? Like that need. So maybe it's just about, we are being hard on ourselves when we say that, and also the narrative that we are saying to ourselves that, only when I talk and contribute is only when I'm sharing. Like, listening is not taken as a part of the conversation, whereas it's just the 50% of it, right? So I think it's just about, changing the narrative for ourselves to say that, if I'm not given the opportunity to talk, did I, give myself that opportunity to get 100% of what was spoken by someone else.
True, true. And the entire focus on the I, right? Like, I feel like in a conversation, what's important is the conversation. It could be coming from any medium in any form. But the moment I becomes the center, then how much listening actually happens, or, because there's so many other aspects that start playing out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, just by talking about this, Kiva, I'm just thinking that, I feel we both are having a very great insights and awareness about this. Like now, see, for example, now when you or I will be in a discussion like this, where we see that, we will be mindful that we are not just doing 100% of the talking, I think, right? In order for to include the other person, then we will know that, it looks like I'm too much of I focused there. Can I include the other person in the conversation? Yeah, so we are reading the room, and by reading the room, we are actually listening more.
That's a very interesting point. Yeah. Yeah, because I guess in a way you start also sensing, right? Maybe what another person is experiencing in this conversation. So it's in a way empathy for the situation, for the speaker also, and for others who are listening patiently and have probably a thought to share.
Absolutely. Including everyone in the
After hearing this, I actually don't feel like speaking much. Like, I just want to listen.
Yeah, so this is Gupshup, right? Like, so it can happen only when we talk about. So I'm just wondering, like, in terms of when we think about good listening, great listening, what is the impact of good listening on various things, right? Like whether it's work, whether it's relationship, the relationship with others and self, right? So what is your thoughts on what is the impact of some good listening?
Talking about relationships, I do think that times when, let's say, if I have felt heard fully, let's say by a friend, a family member, a colleague, you do feel respected as a being. You feel like what you are feeling, what you are thinking, the place where you're at in life is not being judged. It's being heard, and the person cares about you. Like the close friendships that we share with people, I think many a times when we say like a best friend, I have a best friend, what is that? Or like a close friend. I think it's somebody who heard you out entirely and removed that judgment. So I think it strengthens relationships. It heals people. There's also this quote, right? Like many times people say sometimes the stage of life that you're in, it's easier to share certain things with a stranger than with people who know you. Why?
Respect and care and strengthening relationship.
What do you think, Smita?
I think the same. It's like, it really helps the relationship to strengthen. That I really feel is such a key. And it's also about that, if we are able to listen to someone fully, it's such a gift, right? It's such a big gift to them, because we are listening to what even maybe they are not listening. We are listening to something that even they are not, it's not coming out either in words or, whether as a non-verbal or verbal, it's not coming out. But we are looking and hearing to something which is, emerging from their future best self, maybe. And this, Kiva, I think, I have, I'm really passionate about the space of listening. And I feel that when I said gift, I really feel that it's not just about the time, right? Like I can give you that 1 hour time and sit with you. And like you earlier said, pretend, I can just nod my head and just be there. And just show that I'm fully with you. But I think in the way that I will engage with you in providing you that space will show that, whether I could empower the other person during my conversation, or it was just a pretend. I mean, the other person is totally going to get the sense of what's happening absolutely with that conversation.
When you said it, I was just thinking that you have a very comforting energy. When like if let's say the times when I also come to you and share something, I know I'll be comforted. Like, oh, I'm stressed about this, or I did this. Let's say something does come up of that sort. So I think this is my guess that it comes from a place of empathy for the situation and the person. And I think that is a core aspect of empathy, of listening. And if you are empathetic, and because I'm thinking, how can a person generate that thing for listening, right? It cannot just be at this level of your brain. I have to listen, or this is the level of listening. All the senses are involved. So I think empathy, curiosity, the different things that we learn in coaching, right? Go without judgment, but with curiosity, have a lens for learning. So when you go with that thought process or that mindset, that lens, you do want to listen. It doesn't become like a skill that you need to practice. It starts happening.
That is true. I'm reminded with this sharing of yours, I'm reminded of Pranav, saying always that I in the other and other in self, right? Like, so I'm always looking at you as, or dealing with you as I would myself, and the other way around. So I'm reminded of this, and I feel that if that happens, like if we reach to that stage, just think like, it is like when I'm spending time with you, it's actually as well spending time with myself.
Interesting thought.
Yeah. All right. What else I would, it'll be great if, the listeners here today would share some of their thoughts as to what do they think about, what do you think about, listening, and what does it come up um, to you when you're thinking about listening? How do you want to improve on your listening skills? Do you see the need to improve your listening skills? So, Kiva, I think just one last question before us say our goodbyes. Um, do you have any kind of a practice which can help you to improve your listening skills?
I was thinking of one. I'm not practicing it, but I was thinking like what could help me. And I was thinking in many ways it's a muscle that you're building. So the intention might be there, but there are certain old habits or patterns that need to be broken of the way you think or the way you kind of respond, which come in the way in the moment. So I was thinking, even if let's say I can develop this kind of a system for myself that in let's say in 1 hour, 2 hour span of time, I take out just 2 minutes where I am just fully, deeply there listening, which could look like maybe in an interaction to begin with a person. So it could look like, let's say if you are sharing something, another thought is coming in my mind. I try to bring my focus back into the present moment. The other thing that I was thinking about is we're always in front of our laptops, always working, right? So if I can just build that kind of a muscle to also see at what's around me. So we've done this exercise with Tracy in one a mindfulness session that she had done, where I remember she asked us to pause and just look around, and I just suddenly noticed that there were things in the room that I had not noticed, which I probably had for years. And it's just it helped me to become more observant and more present while wherever I am. So I think maybe trying these two things out is something. Let's see how it goes. I'll try and see how it goes. and you, Smita, do you have a practice?
It's just that, just this morning something happened. Like, I think I was feeling a bit reactive towards something, and I observed that I am not able to focus and listen to anything anyone was saying. My go-to is always on the breath. So it's like just focusing on the breath for, 6 seconds of inhalation, 6 seconds of pause, and then exhalation for 6 seconds. I think this is my go-to for anything which, for any space that I want to get back to, focus on something, whether from being that, reactive space to being present and listening to the other. And the other thing, like, which as a practice again, is like, as soon as I get up in the morning, I try and listen to, just for 1 minute, to the sounds very close to me, maybe, the sound of the fan or anything that that I'm listening to very close. And then I deliberately put my attention to a bit larger space and see if some sounds of vehicle or something, right? Somebody's cooker is whistling and all that. So that, like, just expanding the I think that again has helped me to sharpen the listening, maybe, and it's just a journey again.
Wonderful.
Right. I think with that, we can wrap up. Thank you so much for listening today to our conversation on listening. Please do share on comments if you feel resonated with anything of what we share, anything that you want to share with us as your story, or any tips or tricks to be a better listener.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you,
Kiva.
Smita.
Thank you for this cup shop.
Thank you. Bye.